Imagine standing in front of your bathroom mirror, running your fingers through your hair, only to notice your hairline has crept back just a little farther than yesterday. For millions of people, baldness feels like a modern curse. But here's the astonishing truth. This story began tens of thousands of years before mirrors, barbers, or even written language existed. Picture an experienced hunter on the African savanna 100,000 years ago. As he gazes into a still pool of water, he notices the same receding hairline. Why would evolution strip away the very hair protecting the brain beneath the blazing sun? To understand why we lose our hair, we first need to answer an even stranger question. Why did humans lose almost all of their body hair in the first place? Our distant ancestors were once covered in thick fur, much like modern chimpanzees. Then, around 1.7 million years ago, everything changed. As African forests shrank and open savannas expanded, early members of the genus Times, Homo times, were forced into a new lifestyle. They walked for hours beneath an unforgiving sun, tracking animals across vast grasslands in search of food. According to one of the leading evolutionary hypotheses proposed by Professor Peter Wheeler, dense fur became a deadly disadvantage. A heavily furred body trapped heat so effectively that prolonged movement under the tropical sun could dangerously overheat the brain. Evolution responded with a remarkable trade-off. Humans gradually shed most of their body hair while developing millions of highly efficient sweat glands, transforming us into the greatest long-distance endurance walkers and runners on Earth. But that's only part of the story. Another hypothesis, championed by biologist Mark Pagel, suggests that losing body hair also reduced the number of parasites, such as ticks, lice, and fleas, that could hide in thick fur and spread disease. What looked like naked skin may actually have been one of humanity's earliest forms of biological defense. Yet this creates an even bigger mystery. If body hair became unnecessary, why did evolution carefully preserve a thick patch of hair on top of our heads? Here's where evolution reveals one of its greatest contradictions. If losing body hair helped our ancestors stay cool, why didn't natural selection remove every last strand? Why keep a thick layer of hair on the very top of the body? The answer lies in one revolutionary change: walking upright. Once our ancestors stood on two legs, the crown of the head became the part of the body most directly exposed to the blazing African sun. And beneath that thin layer of skin sat the most valuable organ we possess, the brain. Unlike muscles or bones, the human brain is incredibly sensitive to heat. Even a small increase in temperature can reduce cognitive performance and, in extreme conditions, damage delicate neural tissue. Research suggests that human hair, especially tightly curled hair, functions like a natural sunshade. Instead of trapping heat against the scalp, it creates a cushion of air that blocks much of the sun's radiation while still allowing cooling airflow. In other words, hair became less about keeping us warm and more about protecting the organ that made us uniquely human. But then comes the puzzle that has fascinated scientists for decades. If hair on the scalp is so essential for shielding the brain, why do nearly half of all men gradually lose it as they reach middle age? Was evolution making a mistake? Or is baldness itself hiding an unexpected evolutionary purpose? To solve this mystery, scientists had to look beneath the surface of the scalp itself. Surprisingly, baldness is not caused by hair suddenly falling out. Instead, it is the result of a slow biological process known as hair follicle miniaturization. The key player is a hormone called dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. Produced from testosterone, DHT isn't harmful on its own. In fact, it plays an important role in male development. The problem lies in our genes. Some people inherit hair follicles that are unusually sensitive to DHT. Over many years, the hormone gradually shrinks these follicles, causing each new strand of hair to grow thinner, shorter, and weaker until it eventually resembles almost invisible fuzz. But the human scalp contains another fascinating clue. Hair follicles are not all genetically identical. Those on the front and crown are highly sensitive to DHT, while follicles on the sides and back of the head are remarkably resistant. That's why male pattern baldness follows such a recognizable map, creating the famous M-shaped hairline and horseshoe ring of hair. Twin studies estimate that around 80% of male pattern baldness is inherited. That means your hairline is influenced far more by ancient genetic instructions than by stress, shampoo, or the latest internet miracle cure. The real question, however, is why evolution allowed these genes to survive for thousands of generations. So, why didn't natural selection eliminate baldness if hair is so valuable? Scientists have debated this question for decades, and while no single answer has been proven, three fascinating evolutionary hypotheses continue to stand out. The first involves social dominance and sexual selection. Some psychological studies have found that bald men are often perceived as older, stronger, more authoritative, and more dominant. In ancient tribal societies, these traits could have translated into leadership, greater access to resources, and higher reproductive success. Ironically, losing hair may have enhanced, not reduced, a man's social influence. The second hypothesis suggests baldness served as an honest signal of age and experience. Imagine surviving into your 40s on the prehistoric African savanna, where many people never reached that age. A bald scalp could have silently announced, "I've survived countless droughts, predators, and harsh seasons. Listen to my experience." In a world where knowledge meant survival, wisdom was priceless. Now, here's something I'd love to hear from you. If you had lived 50,000 years ago, who would you trust more to lead your tribe, a young hunter with thick hair or an older, bald survivor with decades of experience? Let us know your answer in the comments before we reveal the third and perhaps the most convincing theory. That final explanation may completely change the way you think about baldness. The third hypothesis may be the most realistic of all. It's based on a concept called pleiotropy, where a single group of genes influences multiple traits at once. The same genes that make hair follicles more sensitive to DHT later in life may also provide significant advantages during youth. Stronger bones, increased muscle development, or a more robust response to testosterone during the prime reproductive years. From evolution's perspective, those early life benefits far outweigh the inconvenience of losing hair decades later. If that's true, baldness isn't a biological mistake. It's simply the price paid for advantages that helped our ancestors survive and pass on their genes. Perhaps that's why humans have spent thousands of years trying to fight it anyway. Ancient Egyptians rubbed mixtures made from lion fat, crocodile fat, and even hippopotamus fat onto their scalps, hoping to restore lost hair. Julius Caesar famously wore a laurel wreath and carefully combed his remaining hair forward to hide his receding hairline. Centuries later, European kings embraced enormous powdered wigs to disguise thinning hair, proving that anxiety over baldness is far older than social media or modern beauty standards. If you're enjoying uncovering the hidden science behind everyday human mysteries, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Which common human trait should we investigate next? Let us know in the comments. You might inspire our next documentary. The human body was never designed to be perfect. It is the result of millions of years of evolutionary trade-offs. We lost body hair to stay cool, kept hair to protect our brains, and developed hormones that strengthened us in youth, even if they later contributed to baldness. So the next time you notice your hairline changing, remember that it may be an ancient mark of human evolution, rather than a biological failure. Has this video changed the way you think about baldness? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoy uncovering the hidden science behind human evolution, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for our next adventure into humanity's incredible past.